It made me cry.
This one's wife. P. Diddy wanted Harry at his parties. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. You will be familiar by now with the various allegations against P. Diddy, a narcissist that I have examined separately before these allegations came about, and whereby these allegations have simply underlined the behaviours that have been identified previously. The range of activity by him supports an individual who operates with a sense of entitlement, has no emotional empathy for those affected by what he does, an individual who cannot handle criticism and reacts badly to it and in a disproportionate manner, an individual who shows no accountability for his behaviours, somebody who is haughty and dismissive, preoccupied with success, who believes himself to be far superior than he actually is, a grandiose individual who is manipulative and has harmed a number of different people. In relation to this, there have been allegations that the parties that P. Diddy has held led to people being repeatedly abused physically and sexually, and there's also been a suggestion that these have involved minors. What has also set the cat amongst the pigeons has been the suggestion that other people have been involved at these parties, either as bystanders, who ought to have intervened but did not, or as potential participants in the abuse itself. A variety of names have been bandied around, and interestingly, certain individuals have deleted their social media posts and have found themselves the subject of individuals stating that they were seen at the parties and, in some instances, seen engaging in activity that was deemed to be unsavoury. The internet is awash with these videos, and we know that Prince Harry has had some involvement with P. Diddy in the past. There's also the suggestion that this involvement might be more extensive and darker than first imagined. Jaguar Knight has stated very clearly that both Harry and this one's wife have attended at least one of P. Diddy's parties, and they appear on one of these notorious tapes. It's not stated what actually happens, whether they're just in the background or whether they're participating. But she did say that they needed to be honest about it, and the suggestion is that their presence on this tape is problematic. This has led to some speculation that Harry is aware of this, and this is why he has been distancing himself from his wife as of late and has been, in effect, going into a form of hiding. It's speculation, but quite possibly the jigsaw pieces are coming together. We know that Harry attended. It's also now been stated that P. Diddy had something of an obsession with the royal family and wanted Harry to attend at these parties. Therefore, given the fact that P. Diddy is alleged to have wanted him to attend, that they have had some form of interaction, that there are other people suggesting that Harry has attended, this doesn't look particularly good for him. It has to be emphasised that there is no suggestion so far of any wrongdoing on the part of Prince Harry, but as the evidence starts to mount, and the evidence comes forward to show that there are various instances of sexual and physical abuse which are not only perpetrated by P. Diddy, but also by other people at his instigation. Witness the lawsuit that I spoke about yesterday, where he used lieutenants to abuse somebody. Might it be that there are other famous and well-known individuals who have been complicit in this behaviour also? A gentleman called Rob Shooter was P. Diddy's publicist from 2002 through to 2004. And Shooter has stated that P. Diddy was obsessed with trying to get Prince William and Prince Harry to attend one of his parties. Shooter was recently interviewed by the Law and Crime Network to discuss more about these allegations. And what is it that was said by Shooter in the course of this interview that might shed further light on the behaviour of a clear narcissist and the involvement, and the alleged involvement, of Prince Harry? The interviewer set the scene in explaining that P. Diddy had allegedly used staff to assist in threats of force and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sexual performances with male commercial sex workers, some of whom he transported or caused to be transported over state lines. It's alleged that Diddy planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs, and he often electronically recorded the freak-off, some of them lasting for days at a time, which involved multiple commercial sex workers and often involved a variety of narcotics, such as ketamine, ecstasy, and GHB, which P. Diddy distributed to the victims to keep them obedient and compliant, assertion of control. He maintains that he's innocent and has denied the allegations against him. The interview mentions that P. Diddy appeared on the Graham Norton show on the BBC and talked about wanting both of the princes to come to his parties. And he explained that he wanted to have Prince William and Prince Harry there. At the time in that interview with Graham Norton, P. Diddy explained that they were once young bucks growing up and they were getting in a lot of trouble themselves. So he was like, won't you come hang out with me? And the interviewer explains that watching that clip originally thought he's joking, but actually, given what's come to light, perhaps not. And it makes you wonder what the princes would have encountered at a Diddy party. Shooter eventually joins the interview and explains that it's been like a tidal wave in terms of the allegations, and he's shocked about it. It's been like a wave of emotions. Let's remember this has now been going on for several months, and so initially I didn't really believe it. I definitely came from that place of being a little surprised, a little shocked, but also I was a little bit suspicious. And now that opinion has changed dramatically over the last couple of months as more and more accounts have come forward and more details. But I came from a place where I just didn't see anything, and I was around him a lot. And so initially, I'm ashamed to admit it, but initially, I'm not sure I totally believed all this. Now, I do. He thinks that the overwhelming amount of accusations, the details provided, mean that it's true. He explained that when he worked with P. Diddy in the early 2000s, he was still trying to figure out who he was, who he wanted to be, and as his power grew, Shooter states, I think that many aspects of his personality, the dark aspects of his desires, increased. He explained that he bumped into P. Diddy probably about a decade ago at a party for the Huffington Post for ALO, and the P. Diddy that I saw that night was a very different P. Diddy to the P. Diddy that I remember from 20 years ago. Now, in this, he calls him Puff rather than Diddy. I'm just using Diddy for the sake of consistency. He explains that he would call him Puff, his friends called him Puff, but if he was angry with him, he would call him Sean. And he explained that he had good dealings with him. He said that at the time he represented some really big stars: Jennifer Lopez, Jessica Simpson, Naomi Campbell, John Bon Jovi, Alicia Keys, Kate Spade. He had a roster of some really big stars. And out of that group, he explained Diddy was his favourite. He explained he was charming. He was funny. he had a kindness about him, which demonstrates, of course, that the narcissist is not red of tooth and claw all of the time. But he said, I see signs where he could be nasty and rude. Of course, we all have those days. Of course, this is an individual who doesn't realise that he's dealing or was dealing with a narcissist. But overall, when you work with a big celebrity, they don't really give you that much attention or that much time. But Diddy was the opposite. He wanted to know how my family was doing and how my life was going, if I was happy. This, of course, is the gathering of information by the narcissist to then utilise that for the purposes of assertion of control. I remember going to one of his parties, and about 2 a.m, he gave me his driver to make sure I got home safe. And so that's what's so alarming about all of this. But I've done a bit of research, and I find out that a lot of these monsters are terribly charismatic. And that is something that I hear a lot. People have these two sides, a Jekyll and Hyde type of thing. So the interviewer says, well, let's talk about this obsession that you told the BBC that P. Diddy had with Princes Harry and Prince William, and the fact that he really wanted them to come to his parties. So he explains that when he worked for him in 2002 to 2004, he's trying to build up his image. And he's showing himself as a party guy who's surrounded by A-listers. And getting two royals to come to one of his parties would be quite the coup. So that's why he thought that Diddy was so obsessed with getting them to come to his parties. And he's asked, why then did P. Diddy have such a fascination with the royal family? Because a lot of people, in their minds, might go to a place where they're thinking, was this an attraction thing? Was he attracted to them physically? Or was it more just the fact that the image of being associated with royalty, in your view, to put it in a larger context, explains Shooter, Diddy was a ringmaster, which demonstrates again the way that he controls. He knew how to put on a show. He knew how to get attention. He knew how to get attention, for instance, in respect of someone like Donald Trump. He's someone he deeply admired, somebody that was always in the press. And so when I was working with Diddy, anybody that was on the cover of the New York Post was the hottest celebrity. Anybody who was the hottest celebrity of the moment, he wanted to be associated with. Now, this is, of course, the character trait acquisition of the narcissist in effect. Shooter explains, I remember he had this passion for Ashton Kutcher, who had just done Punk'd, and Punk'd was the hottest show on TV. It was on MTV. Everyone was talking about it. It was the moment that Paris Hilton, another person that I represented later on, Paris Hilton was popping up on page 6, and you couldn't open up a newspaper without seeing photographs of her. So he always wanted to be with the coolest people, with the people that were in the moment, the people that were the it boy or it girl of that second. And I think we can all agree that maybe nobody in celebrity culture can add up to the power of actual royals. And so Harry and William were two people that he desperately wanted to be associated with. He tried to reach out to them several times. I know he got me to reach out to the palace a few times. He always wanted to invite them to his parties. And I got to admit here, like a lot of New Yorkers, when you don't succeed or when you're told no, you wanted even more. And so the fact that Diddy couldn't get them, he couldn't get them to come to his parties, it made him want them even more. However, where the attraction gets a little bit creepy is, I remember going to his apartment on Park Avenue, and there were lots of photographs of him and celebrities, some family members too. And there was a photograph of William and Harry, a framed photograph in his apartment. And I thought, that was a little odd. Yeah, that's odd, especially because he's not in the photo. That demonstrates the obsession that P. Diddy has with Princes William and Harry. And of course, he'd taken and framed that photograph because he would utilise that for the purposes of triangulation. The interviewer asked, do you think there was some kind of physical attraction to them? There's been talk about P. Diddy being gay or bisexual. Do you think there was a physical attraction? Shooter states, there might be, but my dealings with P. Diddy and people that I've spoken to since, we still mix in the same world, the world of celebrity. I'm still in the game with my podcast. And so the people that around P. Diddy confirm what I've always believed, that he's very transactional in what you can do for him. That, of course, fits with the nature of the behaviour of the narcissist. What's in it for me? What can you do for me? Self-serving. He explained that his attraction is based on it being transactional. He didn't see P. Diddy lust after somebody as a sign of their celebrities, whether they're gay or straight, is when you go and have dinner with them. And he explained that he never got the vibe from P. Diddy that he was interested in waiters or waitresses, for instance, even if they were beautiful. He was interested in who was the most powerful person in the room, the person that could help his career, which, of course, is the self-serving nature of him as a narcissist. Shooter explains that reading some of these lawsuits that actually fits together quite well in my mind. I don't think this was about sex. I think this was about power. I think it's always about him being powerful, which of course is about the necessity of asserting control. So we often find that the motivation isn't so much lust, but so much with regard to power and control. And that's right, as I've explained in my excellent book, Sex and the Narcissist. The narcissist utilizes sex as a means to assert control over people, to draw fuel from them, to gain a residual benefit. It isn't just about the lust. The lust is generated in the narcissist to compel the narcissist to use sex to get to the individual and to get to the prime aims. Shooter continues by explaining that Diddy had his eye on the prize. It was almost like a conquest, and if he could get William and Harry to his party, he's surrounded by royalty, and that's pretty cool, and it would make a good picture in the press. He absolutely considered himself a king. His son is called King, though Puffy thought of himself as royalty. So what better look for Diddy than to have two actual princes there? A lot of famous people in America, particularly New York and LA, he had access to, most of them. But I don't know a single prince in New York or LA. I don't know royalty who live here. That's always been an attraction to these family members. Whether or not it be Jeffrey Epstein or P. Diddy, being around a royal is really special. You know, he said he thinks of himself or thought of himself as a king. I mean, that seems kind of narcissistic, and you have to be a little bit of a narcissist to be a celebrity, I'm sure. But it almost seems, you know, kings are monarchs, they rule with absolute power, so it's a little scary given the allegations that he's pleaded not guilty to. But it's a little bit scary, and especially when you combine that with the Cassie video that we've seen in the hotel room or the hotel hallway. I don't know. You talk about how some of these people are very charming, but also a monster. And accordingly, it appears that Shooter has the measure of P. Diddy, his view having changed over time, and that he was very much obsessed with wanting Harry at his parties. But what he explains in the interview is that he made multiple interviews to both William and Harry, but they were not accepted. So although there was a clear obsession to try and get Harry to the party, at least from Shooter's view, between 2002 and 2004, there wasn't any success. Accordingly, is it the case that he's right and Harry has never attended any of these parties? Or is it the case that he's right, but it's only in relation to the period of time that he can talk about when he was Diddy's publicist between 2002 and 2004, and there's more that meets the eye? A narcissist such as P. Diddy, who would want the extension of royalty to make him look like royalty, an individual as a narcissist who would acquire those character traits, would clearly keep on trying to invite them. And the fact that he had photographs of them, famed photographs, demonstrates the level of obsession that he had in relation to the princes. And therefore, whilst Shooter states that there was no attendance by Harry at any party, it's clear that that must be only in relation to the period of 2002 and 2004. There's no evidence to confirm for definite that he did attend any parties. But a narcissist such as P. Diddy, clearly with an obsession, would undoubtedly have made repeated attempts to try and get him there. Did Harry later give in and attend? Jaguar Knight seems to think so, and believes that both Harry and this one's wife have attended the parties. What do you think? Do you think Harry has attended? Do you think he's got something to hide? Do you think both he and this one's wife have got something to hide? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.